Shelter regulation presently being, the draft is already done, and I had said to the committee, if you had recommendations, let me receive those, and I would have acted on those. But I have not received anything yet, so, but it's still open.
Through the Ministry of Labour, through ODPM, how many packages were delivered?
No, hold on, we're going to leave that for
ODPM?
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that the list of shelters is published annually in the Gleaner. But can I suggest you put it on your website as well so that it's always available? Sorry?
It's also on the ODPEM's website.
It's also on the
yes.
ODPEM's website.
Yes, and I believe it's on ours too.
And similarly, because now, you know, the circulation of the Gleaner is not as wide as it used to be, the physical one, which would have that. Could we also have the schedule of collections from NSWMA by parish on our website? Is that also available? The schedule? It's on your website, okay. Because I think that is, you know, where more people today would be going there than in the printed sections of newspapers to get that information. Mrs. Dalrymple Philbert.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm particularly happy to have the ministry here with us, and I've been listening to the discourse. And I just want to make, there are lots of questions asking about new protocols, new thing. I think it is an established fact that with a Category 5 hurricane that has for the first time passed through Jamaica, whatever we have in place to service this country would have been, in many ways, inadequate. Our houses are properly built here, but with a Category 5 hurricane, we have had extra damage. I am particularly jealous as a member of parliament about what takes place in my constituency. And yes, we want garbage collection there, but I can tell you after the hurricane, passage of Melissa, with the greatest of intentions, there is no garbage truck that could come to anywhere in South Trelawney because our roads were blocked in every way. We could hardly pass. So when you ask if there are going to be new protocols, there has to be, because it's a hurricane. And yes, garbage, I am particularly concerned because leptospirosis is a real thing, and we have had persons who have died from leptospirosis in South Trelawney as well. But not since the hurricane, but generally over the years. But the fact is, as members of parliament, and I say it every day, you know that sometimes the garbage truck, which I call when we need it, comes to pick up, and our own people, they just fling down the garbage out on the road. We also, as citizens, have to help to make our people recognize that they have to put the garbage in a particular place, and they have to store it. You can't just fling it down and expect it to just be picked up, and then you complain. And when you talk about shelters, remember that no shelter opens unless your mayor signs off on it. Therefore, when you talk about a shelter being inadequate, yes, but then your mayor in your area has a duty to advise and to say what the position is, so that while I understand fully, and I expect, and I have heard that there are other trucks, and I'm welcoming that, I'm just saying, even as we have this meeting, and things from the meeting go out to the public, it is, in my view, not totally fair to say garbage not collecting, leptospirosis is going to kill off people, the truck's not coming through, there's more garbage, because under Melissa, the garbage that we have is 50 times more than what it usually is. my own place. Yes, that is what is coming across. And I'm saying to you, when we're looking at the operations, we all want, I want it for South. Everybody knows I'm jealous about South. But we have to be careful at how we approach it and what goes out to the public. That is my concern.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I've listened to a lot of news releases from the NSWMA, and I just want to say that I've never gotten the impression from any of those reports or news release that the NSWMA has not been, very clear and honest with respect to the garbage collection and their ability to collect garbage across the country. They have always been very clear that there is the issue of the number of trucks. There's a deficiency in terms of the number of trucks, and that they have always also been provided us with information with respect to a schedule of procurement of trucks, and that they are working towards procuring the trucks requirement for efficient and effective garbage collection across the country. So I heard it being said as if the NSWMA, in its pronouncements and releases, have been kind of saying, things are okay and giving that impression. I've never gotten that from NSWMA.
Well,
so I just wanted to state that they have always been very clear in terms of the number of trucks and what they can do. And just finally, with respect to the shelters, and the Prime Minister provides leadership on this matter. I've heard the Prime Minister, and I think he has been very clear with respect to shelters and the future, and looking at shelters in the future, and that there will be a kind of a review of shelters and the structures that are used, and the kinds of structures that we will require into the future as we look at what we're experiencing now and what we're anticipating in the future with respect to hurricanes and other disasters. So with respect to shelters, I believe that the Most Honorable Prime Minister will speak to that with respect to the kinds of structures and the rigidity of the structures.
Thank you. I have Mr. Hines, Ms. Burchell, Mr. Clark, and Ms. Lee in that order. Mr. Hines?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the Permanent Secretary, I want to know who is responsible for resourcing the shelters during the hurricane times, meaning bedding, food, rehydration, toiletries, and all those stuff.
All right, so this also came up in the last meeting, but I'll try my best to summarize again. So we all know that every time you are being impacted or about to be impacted, you are asked to take whatever supplies you have to serve you for 72 hours, I believe, Michelle? Miss Michelle? Yeah, 72 hours. The bedding, etc., is, however, normally provided by the local authority with support from the ODPEM, and food supplies and feeding thereafter by the MLSS. And this is why we try to have a collaborative approach locally to ensure all the partners are aware of what's happening.
All right, thank you. Ms. Burchell, and I'd remind members that we have 2 other ministries to come, so we want to, and local government is probably is the first, but the least in terms of providing us new information. So we want to wrap up the local government questions as quickly as possible. Ms. Burchell?
Oh, thank you. PS, a number of our schools remain shelters, and the principals and the boards, they've been calling to ask what's the state's plan to getting them back to their full focus on dealing with education of our children. At the same time, constituents are calling MPs' offices wondering why they're being removed or asked to leave shelters that are closer to their homes and being sent halfway across the parish to other shelters. We wonder if there is a framework, a policy framework, guiding the relocation of persons. What they complain about is that they're trying, for example, to stay at the shelters that are close to their homes at nights, and use the daytime to go and try to fix up back their houses or to send their kids to schools, but they're being told that they must relocate to far distances from their homes. I wonder if there's a framework that would better look at the relocation of these citizens until they can ably get themselves back up. And the other thing is, whose responsibility is it to help these people resettle? And what portion of your budget is apportioned to this? Because MPs are being called by schools to ask about building homes to take these people out of the schools and back into their homes. Whose responsibility is it? And if it is yours, what are you doing to help them get back to normalcy?
Yes.
All right, so thank you, member. Just to note, as you would have heard announced by the Ministry of Education, all schools have been reopened. Notwithstanding, there are a few that still accommodate some persons. And so there are some specific ones that we are zeroing on. As to those ones that you have referred to, that persons were asked to relocate, I'm not sure which are the ones you're talking about, but any person who has been asked to relocate to an alternative location, it was in a bid to ensure that the learning of children continued, because perhaps there was no other alternative within the school compound itself. And we always ask persons, if they are not willing, then we try our best to work through some arrangement with them, whether with other families elsewhere or other persons in the community, or a specified area within the school itself. So that is the general principle. Specifically, because you asked several questions, including budget. So specifically, we are targeting each location, but two remain a focus. Petersfield, which you'd have heard Minister Mackenzie spoke last week as to what we are doing. So we are presently rolling out an initiative with the Food for the Poor and MLSS and a team of stakeholders to include ADPEM to build out an area in Westmoreland so that everybody there can be relocated. So as we speak, that MOU is being finalized so that we can move forward with it. And the persons have already been sensitized, land has already been cleared. With respect to St. Elizabeth, where I know we had asked persons to go to the Waterloo location, persons willingly went. So I did not get any feedback that persons had a challenge. So this is why, it's St. James you're speaking of specifically?
South St. James in particular.
Okay. So I am sure the mayor, St. James, would have had the relevant consultations as well to ensure that persons were comfortable. And what I can say, the team in St. James has worked very hard, their own entity. Just bear with me a little, member. I have to give them little credit, you know. Because guess what? They lost their windows and doors and all of that, and they were out there in the middle of Melissa. Yes. So I want to give them that credit. So, so they would have had the relevant consultations to ensure that persons were comfortably relocated to any other location that was deemed suitable. But usually, the protocol is, if you have to relocate, we usually ask family members, are you able to accommodate, or community members, are you able to accommodate? So that is the first principle, to ensure that persons do not feel as displaced as some may feel.
Okay, so Pierce, I'm going to ask you if you could pay a little bit of attention to the St. James cases. We have people from Cambridge, for example, who have been asked to relocate to Maroon Town. That's 2 lifetimes away, you know, from their daily lives and their social and education for their children as well. I understand that the bigger projects will require a more concerted effort, and you are doing that, as you said, with Petersfield. But contemplate what will happen where you have 2 people at Bicester State Primary right now, for example, who are asking me to build houses. We have a lot of, MPs have a lot of persons coming to them to say, what do we do with you? When I get those calls, do I call you? Will you be preparing homes for them to get out of the schools?
What I can say also member, we are also part of a national team that will be looking on the dispensation of shelters nationally. So as we speak, a meeting is being organized with all our parish disaster coordinators and that relevant ministry, so that information, I'll ensure it gets into the team so that the representation can be made. But the CEO of St. James is here. I'm not sure if she would like to comment any further than what I have said.
As it relates to St. James, good morning, members. As it relates to St. James, I would say we've done our best as it relates to shelters, and Member Burchell would be aware of that too. We've done our utmost best. What we had to do, because of schools needed to be opened, we had to identify, because we can only use government facilities for shelters. So we had to identify community centers that were in proper condition, having bathroom and all of that, to house persons. In some instances, like Member Burchell has said, we can't find a shelter that is close enough, and the schools need to be reopened. So we have spoken to persons, and that is why our shelters have been reduced from 426 when we just started to 33. Most schools only have like 1 to 3 persons. We have 2 schools that has 7.
I'm sorry, just press your button again. When the green comes on.
Oh.
What I'm going to ask, a lot of members are pressing, and then when I turn on, every mic comes on over here. So once I've recognized you, I will take you in that order. You don't have to keep your green light on. Go ahead. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, so I'm saying that we have done our best where shelters are concerned. And as I was saying, Member Burchell is also aware that we have done our utmost best, and we try to place persons as close to their communities as possible where the shelters are available. Because we can only place them in government facilities, and so we look for the best government facilities, meaning bathroom and all of that, to place them in. And we are in constant contact. We visit the shelters regularly, and so we know what is happening in the shelters. We know where they are. We know who are there. So, for example, one of the shelters that has 10 persons, 6 of them are children, and we are aware, and we've sent our poor relief officers to check on those children to make sure what is happening, to make sure they're going to school and all of that. So we know what is happening as it relates to our shelters, but we can only place them in what is available.
Thank you. Is Mr. Clark?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When we look at the situation as it is, we have to give Caesar what is due to Caesar, all when Caesar bad. The Category 5 hurricane that went last year, late last year, is no ordinary. And the situation becomes a domino effect. So JPS, for example, has all the lines and poles. And once they are down, our roads are blocked. For instance, for example, St. James, we would have parked the solid waste truck at a central location. At a central location, and they were flooded out. And so solid waste had a situation that just couldn't be dealt with at the time. And so they had to ask other neighboring parish for assistance. Now we can understand, and the same thing that was said by Member Phillips, we experience just the same. Trucks are not able to go into the communities, and so the pileup of garbage would have taken place over a period of time. But I can assure you, from where I stand, as a member of parliament, solid waste has been doing a very excellent job to get up, but they will not get to everybody at the same time.
Do you have a question?
I didn't say I was asking a question.
Oh, you're making...
I didn't say I was asking a question. I am a member, so I can also agree and confirm. And so for my unlearned colleagues, they need to learn. So listen a little bit more, and you will learn a little bit more.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I understand.
Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Chairman. So, PS, first let me, if I'm permitted, to commend the team, the ministry, for the work that they would have done through the municipal corporations to reach out to the persons living on the streets with food and other supplies after the passing of the hurricane and so on. But question though, can you just give us an overview in terms of what is happening now as it relates to the infirmaries? Can you confirm to us that all utilities have been restored, and in terms of those that have been damaged, what is the current update?
Okay, thank you, members. So Ms. Trika Lewis, who is sitting directly behind me, she will be able to respond and maybe give a further update. Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Good morning, members. We would have had 4 facilities that suffered major damage. To date, we have been able to restore the St. Elizabeth Infirmary, the St. Anne Infirmary. We are currently working on a full relocation of the residents of the Trelawney Infirmary. And the Westmoreland Infirmary, one of the wards suffered some amount of damage, and we have already provided the funds to be able to repair that male ward.
Thank you. And a final question for the ministry from Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to start with the NSWMA. You indicated earlier that we had 191 trucks available to us. Is that in the affected parishes, or that's nationally?
That would be nationally.
Okay. And that 191 are the trucks contracted to the NSWMA plus the 60 owned by NSWMA. That's the total trucks available to the NSWMA?
No, I think the 191 was the total, including the contract.
Right, that's it. That's what I'm trying to ask, Chairman.
That is correct.
And
so of the 191, 73, 101 is operational, 52 are down, and 25 is recommended for Board of Survey.
So can you give me that figure again, please?
Okay, so we have 101 that is operational, 52 that is down, and recommended for Board of Survey is 25, and Board of Survey is 4. So that is a total of 189 for the regions.
So these, if I'm just doing a quick addition, this doesn't seem to include the 191 doesn't seem to include the contractors, or all the contractors.
The supplementary units are 75.
And that's contractors.
The numbers I'm giving you now is as of today. The one I gave you before was right. So that I'm giving you as of today.
Yes, please.
We have 101 operational, 75 supplementary contractors, 52 units are down.
Right, so effectively 176 operational. Right.
So the 75 supplementary, those are the ones not owned by government, or?
That's correct.
So the 101 are owned by government?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry. So we have 101 owned by the government. So how much in the last information, so you indicated that some were unwilling to work. Of the last information that you had, of the 75 that were contracted, how many are actually willing to operate in the last week or your last information? How much went out?
All of them. Because once payments are not being made, there's low turnout.
So
But
they have been
currently
paid?
they have all been paid, so all is now out, which is the 75 number I gave you.
Okay. All right. You also indicated that you estimated that we needed about 300 trucks in total.
In total, island-wide.
That would include the government's ownership and the supplemental, not the 300 that government needs to own. But you think in total we need 300 trucks available to NSWMA?
In total.
Okay. Have you observed a reallocation of trucks from non-affected areas or less affected areas during the hurricane to the more affected areas?
I am unable to speak to that.
I think some indication was given of that earlier.
That
there was
has
some
been
amount
done?
of that, yeah. That there was some amount of reallocation from the worst of to the worst affected area.
So therefore, Chairman, my question is, how are the areas with recurring garbage consistent? What's the plan to facilitate those?
If you remember, Member Crawford, based on Member Phillips' question, which I think is linked, I had given a commitment that I really need to get that information from the ED or the team to provide it to the committee.
Can we also get information that since there is a shortage, is there any prioritization of schools?
I will ask for a full report. So if you also notice in the appendix, the ED gave a commitment to give a full report to the committee. Okay. I think it's appendix 2. Sorry, no, 3.
All right.
So the operations will continue, and he said following, but I'll ask for it before so that you'll have something.
Okay. As it relates to shelters, Chairman, whose responsibility from a ministry standpoint is to ensure that the children in shelters are attending schools? Is it the Ministry of Labor, as indicated earlier, through poor relief? Is it the Ministry of Education?
So the shelters are that's why we have a shelter manager, and the shelter manager reports to the parish coordinator, who reports into the MC. So the shelter manager will work with the parent to ensure that the child is actually going to school. If the child is not going to school, it should be reported.
Do you have such a report?
I have had no such reports. As a matter of fact, we have had reports that children want to go to school, which is why we have been doing all that we have been doing. No,
I'm saying you indicated that there should be a report.
If that is happening, and I'm saying I've had no such.
So there's no duty to report that John went or if John went?
Oh, you mean if we have had a report on the attendance?
Yes.
So because school has now just started, that report would not be in as yet. Remember, school just resumed?
And it's due monthly?
No, I personally have asked my team to ensure we get reports on a daily basis, but I have not had that report in our reports from shelter, from the coordinators, but
Okay.
I'll follow up on it.
So they have missed the first 12 days?
No, I don't think that's what the PS is saying. The PS is saying the reports haven't been forwarded to her, but they're supposed to be tracking it on a daily basis. Yes, on a daily basis,
but I'll try to get. That has not come to me, but I'll follow up.
Can that be provided?
Sure.
Can that be? All right. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Mr. Morris, I'd really closed off, your questions for the ministry, and you were late, so chances are you might repeat what has been covered already. Right. But I'll just minimize it. Try to, please.
All right. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Commendations to you, Madam Pierce, for the work that you and your team have been doing so far. I, too, was a part of a consultation in my constituency as it relates to the relocation of persons, and your colleague did well, so thanks a million. As it relates to other persons, though, who are not living in shelters but are in need of somewhere to live. My question is, can you provide more tents to us, as especially member of parliaments, that we could use to assist those persons? Because we still do have people living in communities and they really don't have anywhere appropriate to stay.
I want to be cautious with my comments because tents might not necessarily be deemed the best solution. And so where we have such persons, if we can put them in the shelter so that we are more certain that they are safe and secured, that's the option we prefer. But what I can say, as I indicated, and by the way, thank you for the commendation to the team. I should have said that first of all. I saw them all smiling because they have done a lot of work, especially the SDC on the ground, to get the kind of information you're talking about. So back to the response. So as I indicated earlier, there is a national team led by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, I believe, in collaboration with the OPM, that is looking at the national implementation for sheltering. And we are a part of that team, and any information we pick up from the parish coordinators are, in fact, as committed to member from St. James to provide that information to that national team. That meeting is scheduled, I believe, for this week.
Thank you.
Or by the end of this week.
Thank you very much, PS, and thank you to your team, and you're welcome to stay. But we are time constrained, so I'm quickly moving on to the Office of the Prime Minister, since they will have the best overview of the recovery efforts, as ODPEM is a principal agency, and a lot of the other ministries are within the Office of the Prime Minister, or the agencies that are dealing with it. So thank you, PS, and I look forward to the promised follow-up, the additional information. You always keep your promises. All right, thank you. I think it's fine, the Office of the Prime Minister, if you want to stay where you are, but Ministry of Labour or whoever is way down at the end might just move up in the meantime. So, Ms. Murray, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Just ask the members who are officials who are leaving to do so quickly for me, so we can continue. Ms. Murray, I apologize. I don't know why the Ministry of Local Government officials are taking so long to leave. They're clearly enjoying their time at the at the PAAC. So could you just open with a 3 to 5 minute overview on the status of the recovery efforts before we move to questions? Members, please settle down, settle down.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Joaquin Murray. I'm the Chief Technical Director in the Office of the Prime Minister. I'm representing P.S. Mead, who unfortunately is traveling and could not be here. With me also, members, Chair and members, are representatives from the Office of the Prime Minister, Colonel Murphy Price, and our agencies, the ODPEM, represented by Commander Gale, and his team members, Ms. Michelle Edwards and Mr. Gerald Wright. Additionally, we have the representatives from the National Housing Trust, Mr. Martin Miller, the Managing Director, and is it Mr. Saunders? Right, thank you. And then finally, representing from the Jamaica Defense Force, we have Lieutenant Colonel Notice. With respect to the status of the response from the Office of the Prime Minister and its agencies to the hurricane relief efforts, we note that the ODPEM has transitioned from an emergency relief to early recovery phase. The National Emergency Operations Center is operating at a level 2 activation, which means that it is monitoring and mobilizing personnel and resources as required by the parishes. The NEOC, or NEOC, meets with partners twice per week in contrast to their previous daily meetings. With respect to the overview, with over 418,000 food packages distributed, distribution has now become targeted and will continue to distribution will continue via the Ministry of Labor and Social Security on a needs basis. The net financial donations for the Hurricane Melissa relief effort amounts to a little over $1 billion, and that is from over 17,000 donors. From these donations, approximately 208 million has thus far been committed for roofing supplies in particular. The details of those we will speak to. Their chairman and members, we would have submitted a report. Some of the matters would have been addressed by the Ministry of Local Government, specifically as it relates to shelters. And we are prepared to field any question that the committee may have as it relates to the report and any other question, of course.
Thank you. I have no questions. Members? Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. And I feel compelled to, well, first thank the members of OPM and the team for coming here today, but also the questions we asked at committee, and it's more in response to some of the conversations earlier, is really just to give us and to give the public a better understanding of what is happening in terms of the spend and the process to recovery. I have a few questions. So, one, I'm noting now that we have started spending from the donations received for the hurricane, that were made to ODPEM in response to Hurricane Melissa. I'm seeing $208 million has been thus far spent on roofing supplies. I just want to get an understanding of whether there's a process for accessing roofing supplies. So if people in a community or a group, and in my constituency, just not going parochial member, but for example, a high school, their building department has volunteered to help to roof in a number of areas. Is there a way they can apply to ODPEM to access materials through this fund? That is one. Second, I note that a further $183 million has been committed from the contingencies fund for food hampers from the report. I'm trying to square that with the Prime Minister's commitment that we're now moving toward vouchers, and to get an understanding of whether this is to be distributed in the form of vouchers. If not, when are we looking to move from the distribution of care packages to the distribution of vouchers, which could have the spin-off effect of helping to stimulate the local economy? And the third question relates to just the figures in terms of food packages distributed so far. There are a number of discrepancies. So in the MLSS's report, in their report, they indicate that they have distributed 21,885 food packages to date. In the December report from ODPEM, it indicated that the MLSS had distributed 242,000 care packages, which is a significantly higher number than the amount that they have reported as at January. And I'm also looking in your current report, even though it amalgamates the numbers from JDF and MLSS, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, it still looks significantly higher than the numbers indicated by MLSS in their reports. I just want to get an understanding of whether, what are we missing in terms of us reconciling and that gap being so large?
Good morning, Chairman, morning, members. I'll start with the first question. So can we access funding for other projects from the donated funds? As it is now, remember, those funds have been earmarked strictly for the re-roofing program, which we have partnered with the Jamaica Defense Force on. So that is where the monies are laid up for. What I'll do, I will take this into consideration, and I'll give some feedback onto regarding if that may be possible.
Before he goes. So before you go to the other question, members of parliament like myself, we have exercised significant restraint because we know the level of the damage in the West. But that doesn't mean that all of the damage has been in the West. So based on the reports, I'm clear, and naturally so, I'm clear that much of the focus from JDF and treating with roofs that are missing has been in the West. But in Portland, St. Mary, parts of St. Anne, these areas that get very little attention in terms of the needs, I'm hoping that you will take a second look. JDF might be stretched and may have to do everything in the West, but let's take a second look and see whether we can create a process for these community-based entities, including schools, to be able to access and assist with the rebuilding in those other parishes.
Member, definitely, we'll take a look at that. You had mentioned the matter of the 183 million, which is being committed from the contingencies fund. So there are some procurement processes which have been underway and are to be concluded, and this is where that $180 million is from. It includes matters already delivered and for us to commit the final payments, and also prospecting based on the uptake from MLSS and their targeted deliveries, what we expect, because there will be still some persons who will need to be getting the targeted deliveries. But out of these commitments already made from the 183 have been received and for the contracts to be closed out. Regarding the numbers of the packages delivered, so the Jamaica Defense Force has been treating with the ODPEM's logistic movement, and they have been co-located in one instance with the MLSS. So the MLSS figures as they have presented today, or will be presenting today, that's about 133,775 packages when they look at their dispatch channels. The figures there indicated from ODPEM are clear, the 98,000. The difference then is the considered bulk through what would have been received donations into ODPEM/JDF warehouses, from which we have made food care packages. So that is the cumulative difference there. So in the December report, I would have to look back more keenly at it. It may have been that JDF MLSS was conflated and not just strictly MLSS.
Yeah. Did you have all your questions answered? Okay. All right, Mr. Phillips and then Ms. Birchall.
Quickly, ODPM. In your report, page 2, of South Prime Minister, the Melissa relief effort, you said that the ODPM received about $1 billion worth of disaster relief material. Now, is this page 2F, net financial donations for Hurricane Melissa relief effort received by the Office of Disaster Preparedness? It's my understanding that would this be net of what other persons brought in through ODPM?
So this is our accumulative account for donations. So there are some bank accounts which you can do direct transfers, and also the Support Jamaica website.
Okay, yeah.
Ms. Burchell?
Thank you. Commander, perhaps this is for you or Mrs. Murray. The Prime Minister had indicated that the relief that they've put together will fall short for some people, and that they're encouraging persons to try to go ahead and do what they can in the meantime, and that you've assessed about 90,000 households as having been damaged either totally or somewhat, and 65,000 of those have already been assessed, whether self-assessment or volunteers or the government has gone in to collect the data. My question is, for those constituencies that are not even 20% of those who've lost homes, they have not yet been added to your system, what measures will you help us to implement to get the data collected so that they can factor into this relief project? One. Two, for those MPs who are being bombarded by questions from constituents about when housing grants will become available to them, where can we access the data so we can guide them, those who've already self-reported or were assessed, to say in another month or two? We've heard announcements about some parishes, some special cases about housing projects that have already started. But where can other MPs tap into that plan, whether through the NIOC or elsewhere, so we can guide our people? They can know that within a month you might hear something from the government about your housing development. Because I want it to be clear to all constituents that MPs are not responsible for the rebuilding or the assistance for the full rebuild of their homes that have been damaged. And so we want the data to get that to them. Thank you.
Morning again, member. Thanks for the question. The project to complete the assessments, I would rather defer to my colleagues at the MLSS, because they are the ones treating with that, and we are assisting them in getting that underway. The current figures for the assessments I don't have in hand, but I do believe we might be targeting, they'll speak to it, they'll be targeting that. And also, as it concerns the rebuild, the phase of it, I'll also defer to my colleagues at MLSS.
For efficiency, since we have the MLSS right here, rather than wait for us to get to them, anybody wishes to just respond to the question? Separate one. Or the data collection? You want to repeat the question for MLSS?
Where can we get the data? Where can MPs get the data to say how many persons have been entered into your system as needing housing support to rebuild after Hurricane Melissa? And where can they be updated on when housing support will become available to them?
Good morning. Sorry. Good morning.
Morning.
All right. So in terms of the assessments, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is directly responsible for that. And we have our social workers on the ground. We also have bolstered the team. We have over 700 volunteers that are assisting the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Those volunteers would have been trained utilizing what we called the JH Diner form and methodology, which is the Jamaica Household Damage Impact Needs Assessment. And so we would have gotten information from some of the MPs, for example, in terms of where there are areas that are not yet covered, and we have been ramping up the teams to get that information. So in terms of the numbers, we actually have almost 70,000 assessments that have been done to date. We have it disaggregated. We have it disaggregated by parish. In the information I provided to the House, that would have been at January 9. But you're interested in what? Since or on a constituency basis, or we will have to mine that data, but we have it on a parish basis for sure. No, we have presented it. We have presented it here on a parish basis, but we can provide it from the constituency basis to you all, and by communities as well. Okay.
But in addition to that, when you were last here, I think the Ministry of Housing was here as well then. I'm not sure if they're here today. But there was a concern about a duplication and persons, being able to call on more than one agency and game the system, so to speak. And I think we had been assured that there would be some
There is no
sharing.
duplication. We actually have a collaborative approach. So you'll have persons from the SDC, Poor Relief Department, the ODPEM, the Council, and other Jamaica Red Cross, and other volunteer groups that are
all
part of
feeding one database.
All feeding into one database.
And also that database, as relief is provided to individual names on that or beneficiaries, that is also noted.
Okay, so we have not yet started the support in terms of cash grants, if that's what you're saying?
No, you haven't started it, but the Ministry of Housing, they have started. So I'm just saying, you need to understand.
So we would provide the information to the entities from the database.
All right.
And they will report back to the ministry.
All right. When we reach your ministry substantially, but there's some more questions we have on that. It was Mr. Williams.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, to the team from OPM. I know the JDF has been engaged in roofing repairs, right? And in some cases, they have been engaged with other bilateral partners. What I want to ask is, do we have a protocol or specifications for roofing repairs? Just in the event that I'm pretty sure we'll have other hurricanes in the future. But is there a protocol or specifications for roofing repairs?
Member, yes, there is. I will admit the nomenclature eludes me now, but the JDF and their partners are building to the correct specifications as agreed. Yes.
I think there's two types of repair. There's a sort of emergency, just to kind of put back a cover over persons' heads, versus the sort of more permanent solutions. I think you would be speaking to the more permanent solutions, Commander.
So we're speaking now to what we're doing. We're doing them to the standard to ensure that once we put the roofs on, they
That's
will...
That's a permanent solution, rather than just getting a shelter over, taking the rain off of people, so to speak.
Indeed. Right. These are permanent solutions that we're treating with.
Thank you. Any other questions for OPM? Go ahead.
Right, so I didn't follow up on when do you expect to begin the distribution of vouchers, the move to vouchers, the move away from distribution of care packages to the distribution of vouchers?
I'll defer again, member, to my colleagues at MLSS.
All right, so what we'll do now is just move from OPM to MLSS and invite Mrs. Jennings to, if she wants to do a 3 to 5 minute opening statement, and then we move straight into the questions.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning to you and the members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity for us to brief the committee on the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's response to Hurricane Melissa, and would have noted some specific questions that were put to the ministry for which answers are being required, and we hope we'll be able to provide the answers in a comprehensive manner as much as possible. As you're aware, we would have had extensive damage to homes and livelihoods, and also essential services across several parishes. And we have 7 main parishes that have been particularly impacted: St. James, St. Elizabeth, St. Anne, Manchester, Westmoreland, Trelawney, Hanover. And of course, we have the issue of rural and hard-to-reach communities that would have been impacted significantly, with roof loss, flooding, disruptions, access to basic food and medication, transportation interruptions, and also being constrained by physical access. So island-wide damage assessments are being conducted, and as I indicated earlier, we are using the Jamaica Household Damage Impact and Needs Assessment JH-DINA platform and methodology, which allows us to garner information on the households, and based on the information that has been gathered, we will be able to provide the support. As we know, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is responsible for providing relief to persons who have been affected by disasters, and we are also responsible for doing the damage assessments. As part of providing relief, we also support the shelters with food. As of January 13, 26, we are close to 70,000 households being assessed, and the actual figure is, let me get the actual figure, 69,000 something. 69,085 households have been assessed to date. So we're close to the 70,000 because we know we have persons on the ground, and we'll be having some uploading even later. And of course, we would have classified the damage in 4 categories. The no damage, level 1, where there is no significant damage. Level 2, there is minor damage. Level 3, major damage. And level 4, destroyed, totally destroyed, where it is extremely severe. All right, so in terms of food security, we have prioritized immediate humanitarian response to persons who would have been affected, and as we had indicated in our last appearance here, that we would have done some pre-positioning and have some rapid mobilization of resources that would allow us to provide the support to different persons. And we would have utilized a multi-channel approach. We had the ministry providing the direct support to persons, and we would have bolstered that with the support of the Jamaica Defense Force, and we also had other government partners, and we also had persons from the humanitarian group, other actors such as the Jamaica Red Cross, the Food for the Poor, the World Food Program, the World Central Kitchens, and others. We would have procured food item in the amount of 228.3 million, and this comprised 52 million after the hurricane and 52 million for pre-positioning, that's before the hurricane, and 176.3 million post-hurricane expenditure. So we have this coordinated approach will assist us in providing the support. And at this time, we want to register our thanks to our team members on the ground, our social workers who have been working extremely hard, and they have also been battling the weather. We have been impacted by rains for at least 4 or 5 days in some areas, but they still go out to provide the service, but of course that would have hampered our targets. So we would be utilizing the targets that have been given to us by the ODPEM, where there is deemed to be at least 90,000 homes that have been damaged and that would include damage in different categories. And we are now at 70,000, as I had indicated.
We were getting differing estimates of the number of homes that were damaged. I think we were up in 150,000 region at one point. Is it that your 90,000 now is a more reliable figure? Is this something in consultation with with ADPEM and the Ministry of Housing and so on that you have settled? Because it seems much less than what we had originally heard.
Okay, so we can allow ADPEM to speak on that because
yes, let me just ask
made that
Commander
determination.
Because this committee has been hearing fairly widely different figures. One point it was 190, then it was 150. Now it seems to be down to 90. Can you assist, Commander?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the original figures we had estimated based on the first survey was 90,000 for households. I believe the figure refers to the 150 having completed would have been, we assessed at 151,000 and some change. Buildings would have received some level of damage.
So some of those could be shops, commercial entities and so on. So the 90, in terms of residential homes or households,
yes,
it's the 90,000 would be the
yes, figure,
the best figure.
What I'll indicate, as I believe I saw to explain the last time, that assessment was done by satellite through AI technology, and there is some level of confidence in the matter, hence why it is important for us then to confirm the matters through the underground assessments which are ongoing.
Okay, so we're now working with 90,000 as a better estimate, approximately 70,000 of which have already been inspected.
Correct, Chair.
Now, the ministry, well, I just give you my personal example to illustrate what happens. For example, I think my office collected in the region of 300 and odd, I don't remember the exact amount now, of houses that had been badly damaged, mostly roof, they lost their all or part of the roof. Mm-hmm. We submitted 100 of those to the Ministry of Housing, mm-hmm, and they have already received assistance in terms of building material. Mm-hmm. But the 270 or so net, mm-hmm, that have been submitted to the Ministry of Labor, they have heard nothing. Mm-hmm. And they are very frustrated because some of them had the same experience in Beryl and are now going through it again. And to be honest with you, some have said, we don't bother, if it's Ministry of Labor you send in, don't bother send them, because nothing is going to happen. They have no faith. And that is worse exacerbated by the housing people who have already been received their materials, their building materials.
Hope is on the way, Chair.
Sorry?
Hope is on the way. I do hope.
Well,
that
rather
the
than just
will
give
not.
us in a subjective way, or in a qualitative way, can you give us some kind of specifics in terms of what hope looks like? Is it February? Is it March?
Right.
Is it April?
We understand the challenges, and you would have indicated that information would have been provided to get some support through another entity, and we know that information will be correlated with the data that we have on our system. Going forward, the information that has been provided by whichever entity, was it the Housing Ministry, it will be, we are sharing that data with them. So we are trying to reach as many persons as possible. Tomorrow, there will be a special launch of the program that will encompass the cash grants that will be provided to persons to enable them to do the repair of their roofs.
Okay. So we'll
So
hear more.
I don't want to preempt the launch of the program to which many persons here would have been
that would
invited.
impact the persons who were not addressed in the housing thing, but you have done the inspection
Correct.
and done the assessment.
Correct.
So that group
Yes,
would be hearing
will be
something.
accommodated. So that's part of the hope.
Okay, that's part of the whole.
Okay, Chair.
And by the way, there's a lot of members have asked, and I think it would be very useful if these figures, the 70 and the 90,000, would be broken out by constituency. It would be very helpful to MPs to understand.
Except,
No, not in terms of individual names. I'm talking about
numbers.
The numbers.
Yes.
So you want to know.
We can provide that information, except that it keeps changing because we're adding.
No, but
daily.
at a point in
At
time.
a point in
so
time,
like, you
for
know, if
sure.
you gave it to us this week, it would be as at this week.
Correct.
But PS, you've been very promising. Like, for example, you promised me to tell me how many beneficiaries on path were in my constituency.
Okay, but you said you were going to write me formally and
No,
provide.
I had already written the parish manager.
And I said I was not aware, and you said you would forward that
Right, and the
communication
parish
to me.
manager was contacted the following day by the CTD to give the go-ahead, and I still have not received
Oh, well,
6
I'm not
weeks
aware.
or so later.
I'm not aware, Chair, but we can correct that.
So I hope when you promise us, you follow through on the data, because I think all
we usually
MPs
do.
would benefit.
We usually do, Chair. We try our
All
best.
right, and well, I will keep reminding you until we receive it. But I think that would be very helpful. The Ministry of Housing actually shared a, what would I call it, a map?
Spatial map.
Yeah, spatial map, which gave a very good indicator by, you could easily, knowing the area of your constituency, see where the damage was concentrated, etc. And, I should commend them for that. And they've also been very helpful in getting out the assistance. But we'd love, Minister.
So they're using our data.
They're using your
Yes,
data?
yes.
Okay, maybe their data analysts and data miners are more skilled than yours. Mr. Crawford?
Chairman. Well, Chairman, firstly, I want to start by thanking the Ministry of Labor, because since their last attendance, I personally have seen an improvement in the facilitation of the members of Parliament, or of me as a member of Parliament, and their personnel have been coming to meet with my team and going out asking for our list, and I am grateful for that, because we were all adamant that we felt left out initially, and since then I have not felt left out in the assessment. Now, I don't know of the information or the decision process for when people get, but the people are also in states of high desire, and they are going to call sometime before it is reasonable to decide. So they have been calling too, but I must commend that I have been engaged. I can't talk for everybody, and the team there must be commended. As it relates to persons that have lost their jobs due to Hurricane Melissa, private and public, but in particular private, what is the policy, the plan to assist? And I'm speaking specifically to persons that are hospitality engaged, both directly to hotels and to hospitality supporting industries that are now closed and expected to be closed for a period of time. What's the plan for those persons?
In terms of those persons who have lost jobs, we know we've been trying to assist persons, not necessarily those in the hotel sector, but those that have come to us in terms of rehabilitation grants that would enable them to maybe start a business or support them through other social intervention in the interim until, because we expect that will see some improvements later on in terms of the opening of the hotel sector in the short to medium term. So we are open to assist where we can once the budget is available, We are also going out to assist persons through job fairs. We've been partnering with entities that have indicated that there are vacancies. And we also encourage persons to submit their resumes on our electronic labor exchange platform that will enable us to match them with jobs that are available as well. So that is the support that we are providing right now.
As it relates to those same people, is there a procedure that they need to follow? Is there a call for applications, or it is really just based on their own initiative?
I wouldn't say there's a call for application, but certainly when we have the job fairs, which we have been ramping up given the circumstances as well, we advertise, we send these out, the flyers out, they're on our social media, we have been sending them out through the parish offices, I'm sure they're going through the MPs as well, several channels, so persons can participate. So that's a channel we have for that. But outside of that, they can contact the parish offices. Our social workers are also on the ground, and they can identify cases and make recommendations to persons as to some of the suite of programs that they can participate in.
Some of those who were on contract, and are there any obligations for payment when these contracts are ended because of closure from the hotels, the private engagers?
Well, I don't want to get into the contractual arrangements that persons would have had with their employers, but that is totally dependent on what their terms and conditions are.
So there is no recommendation from the Ministry of Labor to those persons as to how you would prefer for them to be treated?
Well, if it's a case that I don't know if the arrangement is temporary or if it's a closed contract. Then if the contract is terminated, then the procedures would apply.
We're moving into the realm of speculation because the PS couldn't know what the terms of these contracts are.
No.
Chairman, I don't know if you can allow me to participate in the committee, but I find that you consistently answer the questions I'm trying to understand.
I have to maintain a balance. I
understand the balance, but if the PS don't have the answer...
It's difficult to ask the PS to comment on private
Chairman,
arrangements.
I'm trying to figure if there's going to be...
But we give guidance to persons. But when they reach out to us, we give them the guidance that they need in terms of how they can proceed.
Contracts for which acts of God have had an impact. Force majeure, I believe, is the term. There could be recommendations to these private persons as to how we would prefer for them to act. For these persons who would have broken contract and come back on within 2 weeks. There are some hotels that have indicated that they will not be opening for a year, indicating that persons who were normally independent might become dependent. I'm trying to understand if the Ministry of Labor have engaged these particular persons, entities, with a recommendation of a preference for a treatment, or from a government standpoint with an implementation of a program for these persons. That's really what I'm trying to understand.
And again, I would say it depends on what their contract terms are, but where they need the help, we are available to guide them in how they can move on from their contracts when they are terminated. And as I had indicated earlier, the support that we give to those persons who are unemployed and we may need to venture into support, in businesses, micro or small businesses, we facilitate support to them. We actually have training, we give them guidance, we assist them in resume writing, we take them further so that they can move on to improve their own livelihoods.
Okay. So additionally, we saw the supplemental didn't have an increase in the PATH program. Is there any consideration for persons who once wouldn't have been qualified but now having lost all their investments, their assets, may be in need of that support? Is there going to be a PATH intervention in the short term?
We continue to register persons for the PATH program. And so where they meet the eligibility criteria, as you know, that's a household benefit. It's not just an individual.
Yes.
So when that household is assessed, if persons meet the criteria, then they can be included.
So there's currently room in the budget for new persons?
Yes, we have room in the budget to accommodate more persons on path, and we actually would have made a submission to the Ministry of Finance for persons who are on path, the elderly persons who can now move over into social pension, which will allow even more space to accommodate persons. So we do have room, and it's a continuous registration.
What advice, therefore, would you give to Member of Parliament? Can we host part sign-up programs, etc., for persons who might have been affected?
Well, we would expect you to be giving us that information, where those persons are likely to meet the criteria. I mean, the hurricane would have disrupted the session. I did indicate we would have had with MPs on all our programs and, you know, eligibility criteria and so on. But we certainly will be having that at some other point in time. But we welcome the information, member.
Final question. Some students would have lost their uniforms, books, and other necessities for school. Does social service have any program that those persons can be directed to?
We have the emergency and social education and social intervention, where we provide emergency assistance for those persons. So once they provide that information to the social workers on the ground, we can utilize that information to provide the support.
Would that include exam fees as well?
No, we leave exam fees to the Ministry of Education.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a list, but just in a follow-up to Mr. Crawford, while you may not be able to hold the forum or the workshop that you had planned to for MPs, can't you put together a resource package?
I was just going to say we will collate the brochures and so on.
MPs' offices, in a sense, already act as resource centers, a sort of first point of contact for a whole range of needs.
Yes.
So if you could share that, you know, an electronic
Indeed,
package.
and we have most of that information on the website, and soon we will be launching our MLSS services booklet that you all will access.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Phillips, then Mr. Clark, and then Ms. Birchall.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Pierce, let me start off like the other members in commending especially the team from Manchester in their response right after the hurricane. But I have a few little issues that I think that if it is, and I think it's really just how it is that we operate as one entity, including the members of Parliament. Because in an emergency, I find that the members of Parliament are left out, and it's not just your agencies, basically right across government, as part of the response to constituents in our case. And we are generally the first respondent on the ground, ourselves and the councillors. And I find that even in the distribution of care packages, the members of Parliament before, I mean, we got a pre-hurricane set of resources which could not have been even dealt with until after the hurricane, and even then there weren't any entities for us to purchase anything. But then as a member of Parliament, and when I asked the ministry for assistance, we were told that they're not going to be going through the members of Parliament. Yeah? And then when we are the ones that are on the ground, having the Ministry of Labour not having the human resources, because you had persons who were affected who works with the ministry, but was not able to respond in a timely manner in many cases. And this is going to be a recommendation that I'm making through the chairman, really, because even when we're asking for information on persons who have received, because then, you know, you have Ministry of Labour giving, you have the JDF giving, you have the members of parliament giving, so that there's not a duplication that one household is getting more than the other. The response is that there's a Data Protection Act, and I understand that, and that those names cannot be shared with us. And I see myself as a part of government itself. Yeah, right? But we have to find a way, and OPM is here, that in the matter of an emergency like this, that there may have to be some suspension of the Data Protection Act. Because I can tell you that it happened in the hurricane prior to this, where more than one person in a household got a grant, a cash grant. I know of one who said that her daughter and her son got out of one household. They didn't use the money for what it was intended for. One said that she took a vacation with the $150,000 that she got. Yeah? But in this instance now, I can guarantee that there are going to be one person in a household getting from you and another one getting from the member of parliament. And I want to know if it is the policy of the Ministry of Labour that whenever you're giving out those food packages during a time like a hurricane or any emergency, flooding, if it is that the policy is that members of parliament are not able, or the councillors or whoever, to receive packages to be able to assist in the process. Because we started out that they can't give it to us too, because the TRN and name had to be given. I hear a person saying that that is not so, but it is so. It is what we experienced. Is that the policy that members of parliament are not to be a part of?
That's a tricky one, member. But as someone who participated in the development and piloting of the National Disaster Risk Management Act, the members of parliament are part of the Parish Disaster Committee. And you can confirm that members of parliament are part of that committee. Yeah. All right, and so that is the base. That's the base. And they're supposed to be active in their parish disaster committees. And in the parish disaster committees, there are several other entities, the local authorities, the humanitarian groups, the MLSS, and other MDAs that are part of that. They have a key role, and part of that role is in the coordination, part of the referral as well. And if they have identified persons who need the assistance, we expect the members of parliament to indicate. The MLSS being the government entity that provides the direct relief may not have all the resources that are necessary to give to all members of parliament. But as far as I know, where members of parliament have indicated that there is a need that has not yet been addressed, especially in this hurricane post-Melissa situation, there are some areas that we would not have reached, MLSS would not have reached. And that's why we had to use the JDF to support us, to scale up, right? And so even if outside of that where they are giving the support and MPs have identified that there are persons who need the support, the ministry try to assist as much as possible with the resources that we have.
Yes, it sounds great, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. I'll give you an example. The section of my constituency that got the worst damage, I'm heading into that area. I have neither resources from central government, nothing to carry. I had to hire a vehicle. Thanks to Ministry of Labor, I got a couple mattresses. But then I could not get any food packages unless representatives from the Ministry of Labor was able to carry them. No, I'm just telling you what is the reality out there. You are saying one thing that we should be. Even when the JDF is coming into my own constituency, I was not notified. I could be a part of the advice of where to go because we have already gone to that area, so you need to go to another area. But where in all of that, I become enough, make me sometimes get to direct it other way. But where in all of this response is the member of parliament? Because we are generally hearing by the way and not being the first response. And the only time that you ask me for information is unless you can't get the information yourself. And that should not be our role only.
I agree. But, and even post-Melissa, we've encouraged the ministry representatives to reach out to the MPs to say that we are in this area. And I know that has been happening. Sometimes the difficulty was with the connectivity, not reaching the MPs, or just trying to respond as quickly as possible based on the emergency and the need.
I'm going to give you an example. The minister is coming to Northwest, border of Northwest and Northeast Manchester. Gave me a time to meet him in a particular community. When I drove into the community waiting on him, there was a helicopter on the ground offloading. When the minister told me he was bringing packages to give out, when I called the minister to ask him if he knew of, he didn't. Hold on. Now they're going to be distributing to persons within that community. Mm-hmm. That community kept on getting, and they kept on coming there for days, nearly a week, to that particular community, when there are others that have not gotten touched at all. It wasn't until week 2 that I was even asked any question. And it is because I said to them, don't come in here until you have a conversation, because we would have given, others would have given, and there are others that are not getting. The greater point that I'm making is that Melissa has taught us a lot of lessons. Mm-hmm. And it cannot be business as usual. And if we're going to be efficient, because the resources are not great, mm-hmm, then we can't keep on doing things the same way for a different result. And I'm just asking that as the elected representative, that whenever you're going in, because there are too many duplications getting, some getting more than others, and some not getting at all. And when I talk about join up government, we're getting the resources from Ministry of Housing. They can't get cash, but they have to go to the hardware.
While Ministry of Labor is giving
While
cash.
Ministry of Labor is giving a cash grant. And those same people, when you don't share the name with me, may spend it, some may spend it on other things, but they turn up at my office for housing assistance.
Well, on that point, member, the information that has been shared with the Ministry of Housing, where they would have provided a grant, they are to share that information with us.
No,
so we wouldn't have that duplication.
No. The duplication is you give a cash grant. That's fine. Not to the same person that I give to. That person doesn't use a cash grant for the intended purpose, which happens. But then next month, that person turns up at MP Bunting's office asking for housing assistance. That's a duplication because you gave it for an intended purpose. I'm just saying we need to look at it differently if it is for the intended purpose, because you hold us MPs at a different rule, but you do a different one, which is what you're trying to avoid the MP from doing. Yeah? So I'm just saying, look at it differently.
We have looked at it, and in going forward, as I said, tomorrow where they will have the launch of the program, more will be said in terms of the conditions that persons will have to meet in utilizing some of the cash grants that would be provided.
But separately from the cash grants, PS, it seems that over time, we have evolved into a kind of hybrid model where in the immediate aftermath or at the time of the disaster, MPs, elected officials are in the, we can't sustain it because we don't have staff. I mean, we either have to fund it out of our own pockets or, get volunteers and so on, which you can sustain for the immediate recovery. And then you need to transition into a better resourced agency like SDC or so on. But I think this has sort of evolved in practice, but I don't think it's documented. So MPs sort of end up feeling in a only semi-legitimate role.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the operation, when I think we are really on the front line in the immediate aftermath. Some of us are out there even before the breeze stopped blowing.
Yeah.
So I think just in terms of, this is not a criticism, but as we go through these experiences more often,
which is what
we need to.
Which is what we are looking at. As a matter of fact, some of the lessons we have learned in Beryl, we would have documented those, and we're just implementing when we were hit by Melissa. So Melissa has even taught us more, because then this is a category 5, which we have never had. And then the scale of response and the mechanisms and so forth certainly will have to be looked at going forward. So we appreciate that.
And also with the time frame, I don't know if it is that you're waiting until you gather all the names for those who have been damaged, but the time frame in response, and I'm speaking on behalf of those who have been affected. It has been raining in Manchester possibly every week since the hurricane. And to expect those persons to still, and I mean, they went through the Christmas without any roofs. Even some that we are helping through what has been given to us or to our constituency, through Ministry of Housing. I mean, we had to recraft some of them because they just couldn't wait. Some took loans, some had to find some creative way.
They go zinc bush.
Yeah, because there was just nothing. And I think the response time, instead of us making these grand announcements and PR thing, get the people in a state that they can feel normal again. Because it is miserable out there when an individual, after months, still can't put a roof over his head or anything at all.
Well made. I think we have to move on. We have two final questions from Mr. Clark and Ms. Burchell. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To NHT, I know that you are giving grants, housing grants, different grants to your contributors. The process as it is, some persons have been approved. How long from the time that they have been approved that they will see something to get something done?
I can't see who. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, Chairman and Member.
Could you speak up? Just put it.
The Chairman and Member Clark. And just to give you an overview, the last time we were here, we would have received 754 applications. Yesterday, we'll receive 2,573 applications. Our total applications processed to date is just below 1,000, 995. Total payments made to date, 810, to a tune of $324 million. Just to give an idea, the distribution in terms of application, 617 from St. James, 225 from Manchester, 303 from Westmoreland, and I don't want to park Westmoreland a little because we're having some challenges. Well, we had certainly in the early stages in terms of us being able to get to the affected persons. So we had to use various mechanisms. In St. James, we received 794 applications. Sorry, St. Elizabeth, my bad. And we would have processed 360, settled in terms of payment 251. Now, the time frame that we establish is one where, having received all the documentation, and by documentation, we ask for pictures, evidence of ownership, or some rights to the property. Because if you are from rural Jamaica, you'll recognize that houses pass down from one generation to another generation. So you may not be in possession of a title. So we had to come up with other mechanisms such as the use of a JP, or recognized principal, or something to that effect. Then we wanted to make sure that those applications that we receive, that they were genuine, because we saw cases, and just to mention one development which is close to central St. James, where some of the claims that we received when we went out there, the persons who were claiming, they did not live there. So we have to do our verification. But all things being equal, the process was one where we were hoping that having received all the documentation in 3 days, we would have been able to go out to the site, do our verification and whatever validation in less than a week, and then to submit to the central point, which is in head office, for payments. We found a number of issues. Before we do the transfer, we have a system where we try to treat with the validation to make sure that we are sending the money to the right account. We have seen where, with everything, there's a learning curve. We are treating with those, and we expect that the balance that we have here to treat with, that's the difference between the 15,000 that we consider to be, 1,500 that we consider to be work in progress, and the 2,500 is about another 1,000 that before the end of the month, we should be able to clear up those.
And Mr. Miller, if I recall correctly, you said it wasn't restricted to NHT mortgages or mortgagors, persons who receive NHT mortgages. It's anybody who is a NHT contributor could apply for this grant?
Correct, Chairman. So what we're treating with is, it would cover pensioners, because you are a relative of yours able to apply. So I've looked at a situation where once we can establish that you would have contributed to NHT in the past, then you would be able to apply for the grant of up to $500,000.
So it's anybody who currently or previously was an NHT contributor can apply for a grant. And you only received 2,500?
To date, we have received 2,573.
I'm surprised that it's so few. All right, Miss. You want a clarification on that, Mr. No?
Sorry, Mr. Martin, I just want some clarification. My original understanding of the grant was that a contributor could apply for it for an immediate family member who is not necessarily a contributor. Is that still the case?
Yes,
so that is the grant?
That is there.
Okay.
Because remember now that you could live in a property where the owner is not a contributor, would have never contributed before. And just to revert to where we try to address the ownership issue.
No, but it was not my understanding that you even needed to live at the property. So if I live in Kingston,
yeah,
and my mother lives in St. Mary, St. James, and she is not a contributor, can I apply for her to get the benefit? That is what I want to clarify.
You are correct.
All
as
right.
long as we can establish that there is the relationship.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So, Chairman.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Clark.
My mic is on.
You haven't pressed your button. I'm trying to turn on your mic. It's not. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much. I'm still waiting on the answer that I asked. And I noticed that members who aren't willing to learn continue to ask questions over the question that I asked.
So you repeat your question, because I'm sure Mr. Miller thought he had responded.
Mr. Miller went on to give an update, and because of him giving the update, members choose to ask questions of him, and so it would have fell by the wayside. Mr. Martin, sir.
Yes, Member Clark.
Contributors would have been approved of the grant. How long from the time that they have been approved that they can see something in an account for them to get the work done?
Once your application is approved by the branch manager, it's a very simple process. It goes to the branch manager, it's approved, sent off by electronic means. In 3 working days, you ought to be paid. Now, where you have a challenge is that there are different definitions for approval, because a contributor may, for whatever reason, drop off various documentation and believe that everything is okay. And when we, great, you are looking at 72 hours. 3
working days. Ms. Burchell?
No, Ms. Burchell was me.
Ms. Burchell?
Thank you. Right, so PS, I wanted to know.
I wanted to complete with him.
Okay, you can.
Oh, you wanted a follow-up, Mr. Warmington? Go ahead.
Mr. Miller mentioned the issue that only contributors can apply for assistance for reconstruction and development as such, the hurricane damage. You're saying only contributors?
Or their immediate families?
Contributors or the immediate. Then I'm curious then. The church is not a contributor. So on what basis, how would you assess their application for loans and understand they're supposed to apply to housing trusts for loans? And if they are not contributors, how do you assess them and approve such application when you are telling us now that only contributors can apply? In what category? How do you assess that? And they're not contributors?
Mr. Chairman, for many years now, we have operated what we refer to as an institutional loan.
No. Mr. Miller, watch me. I'm not asking about what happens over the years. I ask a simple question in a relationship. If the churches are not contributors and housing trust was established to assist contributors, and you are saying only contributors are qualified to apply, I'm not interested in institutional loans that have been done over the years. I'm asking how do you provide for them? They are not contributors when you just say contributors provided for.
I am not aware, Mr. Chairman, of the specific case that the member is referring to. What we have in place is a facility that will allow, so you have churches that are a member of a larger umbrella. So, for example, take the Baptists. So the Baptists could apply for a loan, provide us with the necessary security. As we all know, they own a lot of land. We have found in the past.
No, I'm not clear. Is that for residential development you're talking about, where they're acting as developers? Or it's for the church's own facilities? I think Mr. Warmington wants to know.
Yes.
In what capacity is the church benefiting if they are not a contributor and NHG was set up to serve contributors?
It is not correct to say the church is not a contributor.
No. Just a minute. Point of order. Correction. Can you provide evidence to this meeting that churches have been contributing to housing trust? How church going to contribute to housing trust? My brother, hold on. Mr. Miller. How can the church contribute? The church has never contributed a dime. What social security TRN they use?
Mr. Chairman.
No, what TRN they use to make that contribution? They don't.
Mr. Chairman.
Period. No, they don't. Please, Mr. Miller. The issue, you said that you don't know what specific I'm talking about. An announcement was just made last week. The provisions are made for them to get concessional loan from you. And their contributors who have applied to housing trusts cannot get loans because they don't have enough points. They don't have enough points, so they can't get it. So how do you find the points for the church? How do you arrive at that? I don't want you about institution and, umbrella church or Baptist or what have you. I don't, because I'm saying the church can apply for loans based on their financial status, because the last report showed that the churches have more than $2 billion in account. And they have vast acreage of lands. They can apply against that. And don't dip into what you have that is there for contributors. You have one church in Spanish Town, the Philippa Baptist Church. The last financial report showed they have more than $70 million in their account. One single Baptist church in Spanish Town, Philippa Baptist Church. So what I'm saying, you have poor contributors applying to you, they can't get it, but then the church just walk in over there and get it. I'm saying that what needs to be done now, your board needs to change the rule that every contributor should be able to walk through the doors of housing trust to apply for a loan without any assessment of qualification if the church can do it without being qualified, based on the record that you now have. So the point system must be eliminated now to justify what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond?
Yes, you can respond.
If we were to look at the facilities that are in place to treat with this initiative as it relates to Melissa recovery, one of the first things that was made clear is that there are certain contribution requirements that would be relaxed for the individual. So for example, one requirement is that your contribution ought to be current. It was made clear. And it was
your contribution ought to be?
Current. Meaning,
current,
yes.
Okay.
It was made clear that that would be relaxed. So then we get back to the whole issue. Once you're a NHD contributor, you are qualified for a loan. The issue that we tend to miss is the amount of loan that you are qualified for. It may not necessarily be sufficient to do what you want to do. But any contributor who walks into NHD now, they are qualified for a loan. The only question is the amount. Any contributor that is current, but under the Melissa relief, you can we relax the section to treat with you being current. And that's the reason why we were able to say, once you have contributed to the National Housing Trust, then you can benefit.
Okay, we understand that though, but I think it's a different point. I think it's a different point Mr. Warrington is making. But before you follow up though, I'm trying to understand myself because I think Mr. Warrington caught a news release that I didn't. What is the provision that the NHT has under this Melissa recovery for churches?
What we have, Mr. Chairman, is the facility that allows the church to apply for a loan. We look at their cash flow requirements that they would have submitted along with other people to see how they can service this loan.
And this is a loan to repair the church.
This is a loan to repair, to assist in terms of the replacement of the roofs.
Of the church, as opposed to a residence.
Right.
Okay.
But if I may.
I just wanted to get clear in my own understanding.
Yes.
But go ahead, you wanted
Right.
to make something.
But if I may, and sometimes when we talk about getting back the life of Jamaicans to a point where they are reasonably comfortable. For most of us, Mr. Chairman, and I know that you are aware of life in rural Jamaica, the church is a very, very important part of what member and I were talking about.
Okay.
Mr. Wilmington.
I know of the importance of the church and the part the church plays. No, they can't pray for me. They're not qualified enough. I go to my church and part of my church. I do not pray at my church in my home. I don't know. Some of those who pray for you, then don't cross, and you don't pray for you properly. I'm saying I know of the importance. So too are the Citizen Association, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club, and all of those. Okay? What I'm saying, you said the church can walk and get the loans because of institutional what have you. Can the Kiwanis Club? Can the Lions Club? Can Citizen Association? Because special provision and standards were made for the church. So can we include these to repay the community center? The Lions Club, the Friendly Society also, the 121.
Mr. Chairman.
So I'm asking Mr. Miller.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, you finish, Mr. Wilmington?
No, I'm asking, you see, I'm not satisfied. I want to know about the other institutions out there.
So
if it's only church, I know the importance of the church. Because I give to the church, you see, I give to the church. I take care of my church. I pay the entire roof. I put in all the windows, doors, and so on. No, I have my church and work for my boy. So I'm saying I know the importance, okay? But when a church have over 70 million in its account, well, you can provide for them. Most of these churches run as, I'm not talking about the established churches, Baptist, Presbyterian, Anglican, but you have some who come up wayside and have somebody say they have this big, elaborate building there, and every day you have to carry this, and 5 collection a day or offering per day you have to give in the church. And when passing birthday, 5th Sunday you have to give extra one. And past birthday you have to give extra. Those elko come of church and that's what they establish churches. So I know the issue. So what I'm saying, members of the church have been giving all the while. And the churches that have more than $2 billion in their account, it's time for them to give back to assist the poor persons who have been giving them over the years to rebuild. I don't think that's happening. Plus, we have a lot of individuals who have little businesses and shops and so on that damage and blow down.
Mr. Carr, but you
This
see,
is the time when the church has to step up and assist these individuals to restart their small businesses. Okay? To start their business and so on, but not to dip in the government pool to repair the church. They have enough money to do it. And Mr. Clark, I don't understand. Why you take me on, you know? I know about the church more than you do. So don't take me on in this. You can't convince me. I know what I'm talking.
Mr. Chairman, on a point of order, sir.
Yeah,
I hear the member, but I think we are moving away from the real matter of PAAC.
What? You just realize that? I'm surprised.
So I want you to rule on the matter, sir.
All right. I think we've exhausted that issue, and I'm very clear now on Mr. Wilmington's position, and I'm going to counsel Mr. Miller not to respond any further. All right, Ms. Birchall.
Pierce, I just want one final message that we can take back to constituents. Where you are now, you're moving from relief to early recovery. I think that's what Commander Gale said. So we should not expect the usual JDF teams coming in with food packages and other relief supplies, and instead be focused on receiving vouchers What format will those take?
You're
I'm
not
asking,
leaving, Mr. Warmington.
what format will those take? When can they start to expect these vouchers? And secondly, should they also be expecting housing support grants? What format will those take, and when should they expect it? I just want us to be clear what we are to communicate to our constituents at this time.
All right. Please go ahead. We're going to be wrapping up now. I was aiming to finish by 1, so I think this will be the final question. Wait.
I'm always overlooked, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You will have the final.
Okay, member, in terms of the information to your constituents, yes, we're moving from relief to recovery, and already the GADF team has scaled down, if not totally completed their assignments. And we will have food that we'll provide where the needs have been identified, but not the mass approach or the all that is there for everybody approach, no. So it's good, now that we have done all of that, when we're doing the assessments and we have identified persons who are still in need, we prioritize the most vulnerable, the persons with disabilities, the senior, the elderly, especially those living alone and the like. In terms of the payments, we are hoping to do that to start in January, and I said tomorrow we'll provide additional information, so your constituents will also be advised.
Because the JH Diner...
As part of the recovery program.
The JH Diner did both the housing impact as well as the needs assessment.
Yes, sir.
Simultaneously. All right. All right.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Morris, you always have the last.
A quick question for Mr. Miller. When is the deadline for the submission of applications for this very same grant? And if it is that it's very close, around the corner, I would like to know if there's any plan to extend the deadline so as to facilitate more persons out there who could benefit from this grant.
So, Chairman, we are hoping to, our first deadline that was set was really the end of January. But we understand, again, because of some of the challenges that I would have mentioned earlier, that there are cases that we expect to receive after. So we will treat with them on a case-by-case basis.
I would suggest at least the end of March. Because a lot of communities just getting back contact, recently getting back electricity and etc. So I think it would be unfair to those communities who are the very last to get back into communication to cut it off at the end of January. Just a suggestion for your consideration. All right. Thank you very much to the two ministries. You've been very patient and very helpful in responding. I would release you. We have one or two administrative and housekeeping matters to deal with for the committee in executive session. So thank you very much, Mrs. Jennings and team, and Mrs. CTD and team, Mrs. Murray and team. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All the best. You're welcome to leave while we deal with the remaining administrative matters. So members, if we return to the agenda. First, I know Mr. Warmington had a particular interest in...
I came in late and I gave indication from yesterday I'm going to be a little late this morning.
Right.
The issue with the JPS, what excuses we got today for them not being here?
I had shared with the committee that the CEO had called me personally on Monday to say that he had planned to return to Kingston. Apparently he's based in Westmoreland now, but he had planned to come back into Kingston on Monday to, among other things, address this committee. He said there was a fatal accident involving a convoy of overseas linemen that had four fatalities, and that it was essentially they were traumatized, and it had the potential to affect the ongoing restoration. And he felt it was important for him to be there to deal with the matters on the ground and ensure that restoration continued. Now, I give it to you as I received it.
Is there a doctor, a nurse? Does he drive a hearse? Look, this is the third time we've got excuses from JPS for not being here. I think it's a matter of level of disrespect. It's a height of disrespect and disregard for Parliament. If you have that disrespect and disregard for this committee, it means for Parliament. And I'm moving that way, issue summons or subpoena, whatever it is here, for them to appear before this committee. We cannot take this step of disrespect from any other institution, and they are the only one that appeared like this. The issue is, and this is why my next private member's motion will be dealing with sanctions for people who show disrespect for Parliament and contempt for committees. As it stands now, we have nothing in law that you can, sanction them with. So this is a part that I'm coming with now, because this is height of disrespect and disregard for the institution of Parliament.
And I must say that that was the sense of the committee at the last meeting. And in fact, we were advised then by the legal counsel, who is here now, who has returned. Thank you. Ms. Stewart, the committee has been grappling for some time with the JPS, who seems determined to avoid appearing before the committee. And, I think we were lenient for the first couple of months. We knew that they were grappling with a lot, and they were overwhelmed. But I think the committee is at the end of its patience now. And we had some advice previously, not formally in writing, that the committee has the powers to summon persons, and it did not make any restriction whether they were public sector, private sector, summon persons. I believe it has, the committee has the powers of a judge to summon, the same powers that a judge has to summon witnesses or summon persons that the committee also has. And I think the committee is inclined now to issue that, to utilize those powers, if I'm understanding you, Mr. Warmington. And I see other committee members nodding their heads. Could you want to just confirm that for us, Council? The mic is on.
All right, thank you, Chair. The Legislative Council Department had actually received your email in regards to the issue. And based on our research and our perusal of the standing orders, particularly standing orders 75 and 78 of the House of Representatives, and also looking at the legislation, the committee's powers and privilege, when you look at section 5.1 as well as section 9 and section 12, it gives the committee, as well as section 6.1 of the Act, it gives the committee the jurisdiction to actually go ahead and issue a summons to have JPS appear before the committee. So we have actually done the necessary research. We have commenced our drafting of the brief to you, and we will forward that to you to proceed in regards to the matter.
Okay, what is the process to issue the summons?
Well, when you look at section 5.1 of the Act, which speaks to the power to order attendance of witnesses, it specifically stipulates that either House or any standing committee may, subject to the provisions of section 9 and 12, order any person to attend before such house or before such committee and to give such evidence or to produce any paper, book, record, or document in the possession or under the control of such person. And it goes on to say that the power to basically go ahead and issue a summons is actually last resort, but as you have indicated that several invitations have been extended, and subsequently we can go ahead now and invoke Section 5.1. It goes on to say that the committee executing its powers and privileges in accordance with the Act may proceed in its respective meeting to adopt a motion to summon the specific entities, for example, representatives of a government agency or private body, to appear before it. Section 6.1 of the Act, which entails attendance to be notified by someone, stipulates an order to attend, to give evidence, or to produce documents before either house or a committee shall be notified to the person required to attend or to produce documents by a summons under the hand of the clerk, issued by the direction by the appropriate authority. In this instance, the appropriate authority is the chairman of the committee. All summons issued under Section 6.1 shall, in compliance with Section 6.2, state the time and place where the person summoned is required to attend and the particular documents which the person is required to produce. Now, summons in accordance with Section 6.3 of the Act may be served by an officer of either house or a constable. Right, so that's basically Section 5. Section 6 outlines the procedure.
Okay. So as I understand it, then this house would just, this committee would just pass a motion to summon the CEO of the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited to our next sitting, which would be on the 28th of January at 10 a.m. at Garden House. Is that correct? All in favor of this motion? Aye. Against? The ayes have it. All right. We are asking you to assist with the drafting of the various documentation to put this into effect. All right. Members, we now turn to item 5, reading and confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held, well, 2 sets of minutes, one for the meeting held on December 3rd, 2025, and the other for December 10th, 2025. Can I get a motion for the adoption of December 3rd? Mr. Member Phillips and Member Clark. And for all in favor? Aye. And for confirmation of the December 10th, 2025 minutes. Ms. Lee? Oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand going up. Your motion, yes? Move. And Member Morris, seconding. All in favor? Thank you. Any other business?
Are we supposed to have a look at what's happening at the University Hospital?
I think that will be the remit of the PAC, Public Accounts Committee, because the reports of Auditor General are automatically referred to the Public Accounts Committee. Okay. Well, I happen to be a member of that committee. They're meeting on the 3rd of February, but I don't think it, and I don't believe it will be for that matter. But there are a number of reports which are going to be on the agenda of the PAC over the next few weeks, I imagine.
Okay.
All right. The date of next meeting, we had tentatively set that for 28th, 2 weeks from now, 28th of January, 10 a.m. at Garden House.
One more, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
Yes. I have a lot of information from my constituents and elsewhere about the internet service providers. They are not fully restored, and do you think we should?
Well, I would like to wrap up our hearings on the Melissa recovery, or put it this way, this initial phase of recovery. Perhaps either at the next meeting, ideally at the next meeting, so we could also invite, since JPS is to come, we could invite the service providers,
yes, please.
telecoms providers as well, Flow and Digicel.
And water.
NWC. Well, NWC, based on a report we have, NWC seems to be largely
compliant,
restoring. And also to the extent they're not, they're waiting on the GPS to connect the last facilities. But I know they just did Roaring River, for example, which put on back about 50,000 customers. If you'd like, we can invite them,
yes.
NWC. But since this will be the only time we have the GPS, I would
minimize the number of persons.
Yeah, minimize the other number of persons.
All right,
so but what I would like to ask members to start thinking about would be the next, because after the next meeting, we'd be wrapping up now and asking the consultant to draft a report on this round of Hurricane Melissa recovery efforts, and then we'll be moving on to our next topic. So please spend some time thinking about the other areas that you'd like us to examine in our February meetings, and come prepared to recommend that at the meeting of January 28th. All right. With that, let me just thank members for their attendance today, and I have seen that we're not getting. There are no apologies, I thought, other than maybe members coming a little late or leaving a little early. But I'm pleased to say that we're enjoying very high attendance of this committee, which is good, which is a good example. All right. I just also to advise that unlike last time we met, there is lunch available today for members in the members lounge downstairs. So anyone who is so interested, lunch is available today. All right. Can I have a motion for the termination of the meeting? So Mr. Hines and Mr. Clark, all in favor?
allowed to speak for myself. They make all the decisions.
I'm not allowed to go anywhere by myself. They're afraid I'll escape.
See how my hand and face bruise up? Them beat me because me say me tired.
I'm only 13, but they said if I work harder, they will allow me to go home.
Me no have no birth paper, no ID. Them take all of my documents, them.
Victims of human trafficking are all around us and they need our help. Forced labor is one of the many forms of human trafficking. If you see something, say something. Report suspected cases of human trafficking. Call the nearest police station, 119 or 888 PROTECT.
It's Wednesday, January 14th. In the headlines, power has been restored to 92% of JPS customers after Hurricane Melissa. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness wants the private sector to invest in cutting-edge technology to boost production. In business news, the government plans to rebuild the coffee industry. Regionally, Belize and the United States modernizes borders with new biometric data technology. And in sports, West Indies under-19s impress in the build-up to the ICC Under-19 Men's World Cup. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. 92% of customers who lost electricity due to Hurricane Melissa have now been reconnected. That's the word from Energy Minister Darrell Vaz. He shared the information while addressing Parliament on Tuesday.
In December, Westmoreland was at 18% restoration. That was the middle of December. We are now at the middle of January, and we are now at 49%. Hanover, 16,733, only 2,799 are out. 17% remain out. St. James, 62,455, only 8,287 remain out. 13% in the second city. And Trelawney, 21,019 customers, for which only 2,501, 12% remain out.
Minister Vaz notes that despite one of the most devastating natural disasters in Jamaica's history, Jamaica did not experience an all-island blackout.
Following the hurricane, 23% of customers retained service. This is as a result of investments in the grid, solid preparation for the hurricane, outstanding execution.
He says just 2.5 months after the passage of the Category 5 hurricane, important milestones have been achieved. He says all major hospitals and health centers have been restored, ensuring continuity of essential health care for services across the island.
The Black River Hospital got back light on Christmas Day. There has been 93% overall restoration of all National Water Commission pumps and water treatment facilities, supporting water security across Jamaica.
He furthers that long-term system resilience is being strengthened, including the use of polycrete to improve resistance to pole uprooting, fiberglass components on transmission lines designed to withstand Category 5 conditions, and network redesigns to reduce cascading and domino-style failures. Parents and students are being urged to sign up for a student transportation card. Transport Minister Darrell Vaz says come February 1, JUTC drivers will not be accepting cash.
Again, you may visit JUTC or your Ministry of Education websites or social media pages for the link to complete the registration form. Unfortunately, from September, we have been offering free service as introductory and then, of course, with Melissa. And now we are into a new year and it is unsustainable. So I want to make it very clear that come February 1st, if you do not have a student card and you have not topped up your student card to pay the subsidized fare of $50, you will be going back to the old system.
Minister Vaz was speaking at Wednesday's post-cabinet press brief. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness is urging Jamaica's private sector to significantly ramp up investment in cutting-edge technology to boost productivity and sustain economic growth. He says modern plants and advanced technology are essential to expanding output, creating resilient jobs, and securing Jamaica's long-term economic independence.
There is one thing that firms can do internally to improve their productivity, aside from efficient management, which is clear that Wisynco has good managers and a good and strategic board that is looking at investments. But that is to invest in your plant and invest in cutting-edge technology. In fact, the greatest multiplier of productivity is the introduction of new technology.
The Prime Minister was speaking Tuesday at the official opening of Wisynco Group's Devon H. Reynolds Brewery and Manufacturing Facility in Lakespen, St. Catherine. The $35 million state-of-the-art facility is named in honor of the company's longest-serving employee and current Director of Manufacturing.
In the last 10 years, we have just added approximately $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion to our GDP. As a nation, that's not something that we should be proud of. We could do more. And therefore, I use this platform as I have the attention of some of our larger investors here. How are you, Adam? I use this platform to challenge the investors. Now is the time to increase that I in the equation of C for consumption, I for investment, G for government, X minus M, export and import. Let's expand the investment, but not just any kind of investment. You want cutting-edge investment, because the cutting edge that incorporates technology increases your productivity.
Dr. Holness says the government remains focused on creating a strong business environment, pointing to a significant increase in the capital budget over the past decade.
We have spurred growth by placing significant emphasis on infrastructure development. However, we need firms to contribute to the expansion of the GDP even more by increasing their investments. And we have seen this happen right before our very eyes.
The Prime Minister says the measure supports a pro-growth economy and boosts Jamaica's competitiveness regionally and globally. The Police High Command has received 1,000 body-worn cameras, which were in advanced stage of procurement in the final quarter of 2025. The Commissioner of the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, Hugh Faulkner, told RJR News that body-worn cameras will be critical in resolving controversial fatal police shootings. Meanwhile, the Jamaica Constabulary Force says the process of deploying Axon Body Camera 3 devices is underway, with particular focus on divisions and teams that experience high levels of citizen engagement. Another 1,000 body-worn cameras will be secured and deployed during the next financial year. As Jamaica continues to observe Earthquake Awareness Week, the Jamaica Fire Brigade is reminding citizens that earthquakes can strike without warning, and preparation can make the difference between life and death. Denita Rodney tells us more.
In recognition of Earthquake Awareness Week, the Jamaica Fire Brigade is urging the public to take earthquake preparedness seriously, noting that seismic activity can occur at any time. Speaking at a recent JIS think tank, Public Education Officer Superintendent Emilia Ebanks emphasized the importance of having an emergency plan and a well-stocked safety kit in place before disaster strikes.
So what you need to do is the same plan that you would have for the workplace, you need to tailor it for your home needs. And what that means is that you must put in place a safety kit. So you want to make sure that you have a first aid kit in there. You want to make sure you have a flashlight, a battery-powered radio. We would have seen the importance of that over the past 2 months since the passage of Hurricane Melissa, because some persons are still without electricity, and they know the importance of a battery-powered radio, as difficult as it may be to find.
Superintendent Ebanks also stressed the importance of including a sounding device in emergency kits, which can help rescuers locate trapped individuals following an earthquake.
And one of the things I want to point out to persons that you must have in that kit is a sounding device. You want to have something that can make some kind of sound in the event that you are trapped and you need to be rescued. So search and rescue teams will know that this is a sound outside of the ordinary, and they will come towards you. So if you can have a whistle, that would be very good. So you can do blast of the whistle. And what that does for you is you are in a situation where there's a lot of dust and oxygen might be deficient in some cases. You are not using up your voice and you're not using up the oxygen to inhale and exhale to be calling out for help. So you do blasts of the whistle, and that will tell persons.
He added that if a sounding device is not available, persons should create loud banging sounds to alert emergency responders to their location.
If, for example, though, you don't have that and you find yourself in a situation where you're trapped, find something that can bang on something else and create a sound. So you're banging. Or if you have a piece of metal and you can bang another piece of metal, that will alert the rescue teams that somebody is in this area.
Earthquake Awareness Week runs from January 11 to 16 and is being spearheaded by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, under the theme, Resilient Jamaica, We Weather the Storm and Brace for the Shake. Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I am Denita Rodney.
Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Welcome to today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing you the development shaping markets, capital access, and business decision-making across Jamaica and the region. Let's get into the stories that matter. President of the Jamaica Coffee Exporters Association, Dr. Norman Grant, has welcomed the government's commitment to rehabilitate the coffee industry. Dr. Grant told RJR News the country's more than 5,000 coffee farmers and exporters have also embraced the initial $35 million disbursement from the $120 million support package announced by the government. However, he stressed that a far more sustained intervention is required, noting that the sector has suffered losses of about $2.5 billion over the last 4 years. Dr. Grant pointed out that an additional 100,000 boxes of coffee were destroyed due to the impact of Hurricane Melissa, resulting in estimated farm gate losses of $1 billion. Additionally, Dr. Grant explained that the hurricane caused extensive damage to coffee farms, farm roads, and processing routes, adding that these challenges must be addressed in a sustainable manner if the industry is to fully realize its potential in foreign exchange earnings, job creation, and national development. PriceSmart says the opening of 2 new warehouse clubs in Jamaica has been pushed back following disruptions tied to Hurricane Melissa last October. According to the Gleaner, the membership-based retailer told investors on its earnings call to international investors that its 3rd Jamaican location in Montego Bay is now slated for autumn 2026, while the 4th on South Camp Road in Kingston is expected to open in winter. The company had previously targeted to open each store a season earlier. That's about 3 months prior, according to its November annual report. CEO David Price says the company did not anticipate any further delays to its club new openings at this time. For the trading period of January 13, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 2,888,962 units, representing 15.52% of market sales activities. Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company Limited with 2,040,483 units, representing 10.96% of market sales activities. Innovative Energy Group Limited with 1,983,241 units, representing 10.65% of market sales activities. Investor activity remained concentrated in transportation, energy, and distribution plays, signaling continued interest in dividend-producing and strategic assets. Turning to the foreign exchange market based on Bank of Jamaica data for January 13, 2026, Forex traders recorded significant activity with strong demand across major currencies. For the US dollar, trading margins reflected steady liquidity, with the US selling at $158.56 and buying at $156.77. In the Canadian dollar, moderate gains supported by 52 cents transaction spread. The Canadian dollar sold for $113.98 and was bought for $113.46. For the British pound, continued volatility offered short-term trading opportunities of $1.71 in profits for the banks. The British pound sold for $211.07 and was bought for $209.36. These movements underscore the importance of cash flow, timing, and currency awareness for businesses managing import costs, debt servicing, or overseas exposure. For the credit report tip of the day, luxury real estate doesn't approve itself at the showing. It's approved months earlier in your credit file. Whether purchasing from abroad, preparing for retirement, or targeting a stretch property, lenders take action on what your credit demonstrates. Control over balances, reliability in payments, thoughtful use of debt, and financial readiness for the next phase of life. Every inquiry, balance, and payment sends a signal. When those signals show planning instead of pressure, lenders respond with confidence, and properties that once seemed out of reach move firmly within range. And that's today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing clarity to capital, markets, and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep building forward. See you soon.
In regional news, security at Belize's international gateways is getting a high-tech upgrade as the government officially rolls out a new biometric screening system in partnership with the United States. Travelers entering the country will now undergo facial recognition and fingerprint scanning under the newly launched Biometric Data Sharing Program. Designed to tighten border security and streamline migration management, the technology is being deployed at all major airports and strategic land border crossings. News 5's Brittany Gordon has more details on the event.
Belize is stepping up its border security with cutting-edge technology. A brand new biometric data sharing program, launched in partnership with the United States, is now in effect. So, if you're traveling through Belize's airports, expect fingerprints and facial recognition scanners at checkpoints. The goal is to stop fraudulent documents and flag anyone who could pose a threat to public safety before they even enter the country. Immigration Minister Karim Musa says this upgrade is a big boost to Belize's security protocols.
What this means for migration and what this means for border security and national security is groundbreaking, because many might not know, but whenever a traveler enters the country, there are screening processes that take place. Of course, there is the initial screening process, followed by what could be described as a very lengthy secondary process in the event an individual is providing misleading information as it relates to their travel documents or their travel purpose. And so this will certainly expedite that process because now we're going to be tapping into international database regarding a particular individual, like I said, who is or may be subjected to secondary screenings.
Belizean officials are also being trained to utilize the technology, which is expected to be rolled out across Belize's borders within the next 2 months.
Today's event marks the formal handover of approximately $250,000 US in biometric data security partnership, funded by the U.S. State Department's Bureau of INL. And this milestone continues the enduring partnership between the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and Belize's Ministry of Immigration, as well as other key agencies. Through the BDSP, we are not only sharing critical biometric data to bolster the safety of Belize and the United States, but most importantly, we are exchanging expertise, building capacity, and promoting best practices in border security. So that the software that you see and the hardware over here is just one piece of the story. This is the beginning of a long partnership between Belize and the United States.
Home Affairs Minister Oscar Mira also expressed strong support for introducing these tools, saying they will give law enforcement greater power to track potential threats and respond more efficiently.
Our involvement through the Belize Police Department will be through a mobile interdiction unit. And that unit will be a specialized unit that is going to be not at the entry points, but moving around the country. So the mobile interdiction unit is going to be vetted. We are going to ensure that the officers that are assigned to that unit are vetted officers and that they pass all scrutiny.
Musa also addressed privacy concerns, assuring Belizeans that the technology works to keep the nation safe, rather than compromising their personal data.
I think it is oftentimes something that Belizeans are worried about. But in fact, if you are a Belizean national, you actually have nothing to worry about coming into Belize because we have all your information already. This is for international travelers who are providing an international passport that may be fraudulent or a travel document that may be fraudulent, or criminal enterprises entering our country for nefarious activities. And so this is more catered towards them. Like I said, this is something that is a secondary screening, and so not everyone is going to be subjected to this. It is only if you're providing misleading information or if an immigration officer is suspicious.
Belize now joins regional partners like Mexico and Panama in adopting biometric data sharing program technology. Brittany Gordon for News 5.
In a move that marks a turning point for Caribbean education, the Caribbean Examinations Council is embracing a full digital transformation. As the council prepares to phase out paper-based assessments, over the next 5 years, it is also fortifying disaster recovery protocols to safeguard the region's certification process amid escalating climate threats.
For more than 5 decades, the Caribbean Examinations Council has certified learners across the region. Now, as the education landscape evolves, CXC is signaling a major shift: full digital examinations within the next 5 years. Already, more than 10,000 students are sitting January 2026 CSEX exams digitally.
We are pleased to say that we are administering these January examinations employing our digital e-assessment and hybrid e-assessment approaches. It is our intention to offer all examinations digitally and in the context digitally in the next 3 to 5 years. Immediately after this January session of examinations, we will start preparing to serve the over 100,000 candidates who will with likewise certainty and confidence, will sit over 600,000 CSEC and CAPE subject entries in the traditional May-June examinations.
But digital transformation is only one part of the Council's strategy. In the face of increasing hurricanes and climate disruptions, CXC has formally approved a regional disaster and business recovery protocol, ensuring exams continue even after disaster strikes.
The CXC Board of Governors has formally approved our long-established disaster and business recovery protocol, which governs how we respond when a participating CXC member state is affected by a disaster.
That protocol is now being activated in Jamaica following the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. CXC's Director of Operations, Dr. Nicole Manning, says students in affected parishes will receive special concessions, including flexible assessment.
The flexibility of schools and candidates of schools in the negatively affected areas being facilitated through what we call the modified approach, CXC's modified approach. And that includes the use of the paper one, that's the multiple choice, and the school-based assessment. So candidates will be graded on the paper one and the school-based assessment if selected to do the modified approach.
With digital exams, disaster resilience and inclusive education are at the core of its strategy, CXC says it is positioning Caribbean students to compete globally, no matter the challenge. Deanza Roberts, CBC News.
In sports, we spotlight cricket. The West Indies under-19s are in fine form heading into the ICC Under-19 Men's World Cup. The Caribbean side demolished Japan by 229 runs in their final warm-up match before tournament play begins. Here's more from Nasir Mohammed.
Japan won the toss and elected to bat first, but it was the West Indies who made full use of the conditions. Opener Tanis Francis anchored the innings with an unbeaten 122 of 48 deliveries, while Shamar Apple was the star performer, blasting 124 of just 65 deliveries, with 10 fours and 8 sixes. The West Indies posted an imposing 346 for 6 from their 50 overs. In reply, Japan crumbled to 117 all-out in 42.3 overs, never threatening the target. Rajai Gittins was the pick of the West Indies bowlers with 4 wickets for just 8 runs, while Vittel Laws claimed 3 for 28. This victory comes as a confidence boost for the Caribbean side after their first warm-up against Ireland was abandoned due to rain. The West Indies now turn their attention to their opening World Cup match against Tanzania on January 15th.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.
going on? This is Cardinal Official live from Kingston, live from the Island Music Conference, and you are tuned in to PBCJ, okay?
We want a piece for Jamaica. Yo, what are you? Oh, man, none of that. No, brother, no, man.
You see you ever play ref? Dirty game,
yeah, but I look a bad game. No, I said, Pearson, you come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, brethren. Just shake on, I can play a little bad, brethren.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, brethren. Just live good, man. Come together as one and make the violence done.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Na 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 na. We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. What we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence the world.
Living in a systematic adjudication area, it's time to secure what's yours. The National Land Agency is distributing titles under its systematic land registration program. Persons in St. Elizabeth and Manchester, visit the Junction Guest House in St. Elizabeth to collect your title. In St. Catherine, we're coming to you house to house. To collect your title, bring your government-issued photo ID. If someone is collecting on your behalf, they should bring a JP certified letter and their government-issued photo ID. For more information, call 876-750-5263 or visit nla.gov.jm. One agency, one goal, committed to serve you better.
Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic. Well then, let's propel we nation, moving forward in a new direction. True independence, that's the projection. No more dependency, it's the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want we country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public while on the road to republic. Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic.
A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
We on the road to republic. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. You fi check out the servings, just do the maths. Not taking too much, finger below the facts. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Take note of the sodium, the sugars and the fats. 5% or less in the on the right track. You fi zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Vitamins, minerals and vitamin 2, 20% and more that good for you. Facts. You feel check the nutrition facts. You feel check the nutrition facts. Less sugar, less salt, intake and less fat. You feel
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, the National Health Fund, and Jamaica.
Let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic. Well then, let's propel we nation, moving forward in a new direction. True independence, that's the projection. No more dependency, it's the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want we country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public while on the road to republic. Let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic.
A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
We on the road to republic.
Jamaicans are indulging in this delicacy. The name says ox, but the truth? That tail could come from just about any cattle animal. We all know it and love it, but do we know where it's from?
What I say? British. Like, it's a British cuisine.
We don't really know where ox tail come from, but wherever it come from, a Jamaica #1 dish.
Especially with the gungo and rice and peas.
We turn now to the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission for the history on this flavorful meat.
The history of oxtail would drag us right back to the transatlantic slave trade, when the slaves were coming to the Caribbean, and on the plantation they would have been given the less desirable cut of meat, the offal, the tripe, the tail, because the oxtail, for example, it takes a long time to cook. So because the slaves are such resilient persons, they would take the oxtail and, from the African and the Maroon heritage, they do a lot of stews. And why stew? When you have a big family, when you don't have choice cuts of meat, then you have to devise ways to ensure that all family members can eat and taste something that's delectable. So in Jamaica, we do that with stew, and it's cooked down nicely and served with broad beans in there. The slave masters, the owners, when they would have tasted a little bit of the bold flavor, they realized, what they were missing and not having oxtail.
Once considered scraps, oxtail is now one of Jamaica's most prized meats, thanks to our ancestors' resourcefulness and culinary skills. Beyond its bold flavor, oxtail is packed with nutrients, rich in protein, B vitamins for energy, iron for healthy blood, zinc for immunity, collagen for joints and skin, and phosphorus for strong, healthy bones.
So the tail is cut in rounds, all right? When you do cut them in rounds, you have to trim, because oxtail have a lot of fat. So we trim the fat, and then we're going to wash. We wash the meat, and we ensure that we don't have a lot of water in there. Back then, the slaves didn't know anything about browning that we have now. So they would get some brown sugar and they would caramelize that in the pot. So we are going to do that today. And then you're going to put your oxtail in. You're going to stir to coat all sections with the burnt sugar that we have done. So we add the hot water, slow cooking. And when it's nice and tender, then we are going to be adding, the rest of the onions, the garlic, the peppers, the scotch bonnet peppers. We're going to add that to the pot. And then when it's almost done, maybe 5 minutes, we're going to add our broad beans, if we use a can broad beans. But if you were going to be using the dried beans, as the Africans would, you would cook those beans first. Then we incorporate both, so we have the beans mopping up some of that lovely gravy. So we want to ensure that we pass the legacy on, so persons will understand where we are coming from to where we are and be grateful for what we have now.
Oxtail isn't just a dish. It's a story of struggle, survival, and innovation. And every time we slow cook it to perfection, season it with our bold herbs, we're not just enjoying a meal.
Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. You fi check out the servings, just do the maths. Not taking too much, finger below the facts. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Take note of the sodium, the sugars and the fats. 5% or less in the on the right track. You fi zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Vitamins, minerals and vitamin 2, 20% and more that good for you. You fi zoom in, check the nutrition facts. You fi zoom in, check the nutrition facts. You fi zoom in, check the nutrition facts. Less sugar, less salt intake and less fat. You fi zoom in.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, the National Health Fund, and JAP.
According to the Jamaica Public Service Company, the average cost of electricity is $65 per kilowatt hour. A refrigerator is essential in every household, but what's the cost of keeping it plugged in all day? For a 15 to 18 cubic foot inverter refrigerator running 24 hours a day, that's 64 kilowatt hours per month, which adds up to $3,900 on your light bill. Now, compare that to a regular 18 cubic foot refrigerator, it consumes about 86 kilowatt hours, costing you $5,590 monthly. Got a bigger fridge? A 26 cubic foot inverter model uses up to 108 kilowatt hours, costing $7,020 each month just to keep it cool. Just a tip, always check the energy rating before you buy. Inverter models save more in the long run.
Pedestrians, stay alert. Keep your head up and stay off the phone while crossing the road. Don't be a distracted walker. Every step matters. Look out before you step out. A message from the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
BGLC, the regulatory body. We regulate, you play without worry. We regulate, you play. BGLC, fair play when you play. For the fun of the game, you know we're there. BGLC, keep it fair for the player. You play the game and we are the rules setter. Keep everything fair so the game play better. The Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. We ensure fairness, integrity and responsible gaming practices. Keep the game fair and fun for everyone. We regulate, you play.
See your new favorite shows on the Children's Corner. Learn, laugh, play. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 1:30 to 5 p.m. The Children's Corner, right here on PBCJ.
Go for dreams. See you on the top in this winter. Oh, white dream, passion melts the eyes. We hold hands to celebrate. We share joy and pleasure. Streets of sweat glisten and freeze while we raise beautiful wishes are lit by spotlights. We win and we lose in life while we grow. All setbacks will make us higher, faster and stronger. Join us to slide down the steep snow mountain into the winding ice trail. We can hear the wind laugh and embrace the world with open arms. The Winter Olympics, join us to slide down the steep snow mountain into the winding ice trail. I define the new speed, I set the new record too. A new start for dreamers.
The first WO Village Ice Ball is about to kick off. If you want to sign up, please go to Penny of the Rescue Team.